I know it says we'll begin at 2:02, but we're actually going to begin right on time at 2 o'clock because your time is important. Um, Today we have Kelly Myers sitting in as our subject matter expert, but that's really just to make sure that somebody is actually up here talking besides me. And the real objective here is to get everybody to feel free to share. Because as I was explaining earlier on, we're using a Zoom webinar, which is a slightly different format. Kemi, excuse me, is going through and turning everybody into um, a co-host, or a presenter. So don't worry about it when you see that message pop up. It doesn't mean you have to present. All that's doing is saying, yes, you're allowed to turn your video on, and yes, you're allowed to turn your mic on. Please do turn your mic on if you have something to say, and feel free to interrupt and say, hey, this is Hyman, and I've got a comment on this. And whoever's speaking will finish up what they're saying, and then we'll move on to Hyman or Jency or Joanne or whoever else is out there and wants to speak. This is a collaborative discussion, and what we really want to try and do is make sure that we are getting the word out to everybody and hearing back from them about a variety of different topics. Now, we have a number of topics that we've pulled from Tax Talk from the last week, and we'll use those if the discussion doesn't go in a different direction. But as I was talking with different members over the course of my phone calls this week, a couple of themes kept coming up for me. And so I'm going to open up with some of these items that came from some of you and from some other members who aren't on just yet. And in their practice, they're running into things. And one of the questions that I like to ask people is, what's keeping you up at night regarding your practice? And, one of the comments I got back was, I've got too much stuff on the floor. And that was a very interesting comment to me. So I dug into it. And it's really a combination of a number of things that are going on in his professional workspace. And it turned out that it's common amongst a bunch of people that I talked to over the course of the week. What's happening is he's got a bunch of work. He's set them up in piles. That's his organizational management system right now, because in his mind, he can just knock them out, bing, bing, bing. And he doesn't want to file things, and he doesn't want to put things away because he doesn't want to lose track of them. But he's not getting them done as quickly as he expected, and more work is coming in. And so we had a fairly lengthy discussion about what his process is for managing his productivity and managing his workflow. And the reality is he doesn't have one. He's basically using his inbox, his email inbox, to be able to manage what's coming in, and using these piles originally on a set of side filing cabinets. He had them, and then he'd move them to his desk, and now they're getting so many that he's actually moved them to his floor. So obviously he recognizes this isn't a great system. I'm sure you all recognize that's not a great system, and yet that's kind of where he is. So he was asking me what to do about it. And so before I talk about some of my suggestions, Kelly, I wanted to start with you and say, is this the kind of thing that you experience at different times? And if so, what do you do about it, or how do you manage yourself?
I think my comment earlier, we were chatting about something, and I said I preach better than I practice. So I think there's things we do incrementally that fit us differently. And my practice runs a little different than most because I do more advisory type. So a lot of my work is driven by somebody messaging me and saying, I need to set up a Zoom call so we can review this transaction or review this return or some situation they're in as a practitioner. But even from a workflow standpoint, it works best if I can block out time to literally do things. It's better. Sometimes I think organization, it's the little pieces that make a difference. Two things I've done lately. One is I've gone to and some of you have seen this. So I've gone to what an electronic tablet. It's this. It's a Remarkable, and not totally perfected yet. I started this maybe 6 months ago. I do not have sticky notes. I do not have a yellow tablet. It's all consolidated in one spot, which helps me because even if I'm traveling, I have all my notes with me and it syncs to my computer and those things. The other piece, I think it's small things of billing. We were talking about billing at one point. We talked about billing even down at the Aspire conference. And I think one of the interesting conversations we had was, how do you do your billing? Do you take credit cards? Do you only take check? Do you take ACH only? I'll just tell you what I personally do, and I don't probably run the volume that a lot of you guys do. I take credit cards and it doesn't bother me a bit. I do not add on for credit cards. I had a guy, I billed a guy $1,500 on Sunday night and he paid me yesterday, or Monday rather. And he paid with American Express. And that cost me some money, but I didn't have to record the accounts receivable. It posted automatically. I didn't have to go to the bank. I didn't have to do anything except write it in the check register if I wanted to. Right. And at our billing rates, how much time did it take you to handle that or somebody else to handle it for you? So I think those are little incremental things that help. And I don't know, kind of those two things, if that people have similar experiences. Did you try something that doesn't work? Did you, do you add on credit card fees? Do you just don't do credit cards at all? And everybody has a little bit different experience there. So I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts.
Kelly, can we step back just a second?
Sure.
So you brought up two wonderful things. You brought up credit card payments, and that's a way to save time and energy. You also talked about Remarkable. Can you explain what Remarkable is for those people who might not have seen it yet?
Sure. Remarkable, and I held it up. It's hard to see, but this is it. So it's a I don't know, it's a 6x9 basically computer tablet, but it's not a computer. It's an electronic notepad. I mean, you can do a lot of other things. You can download books and read them. You can synchronize it to PDFs and load PDFs and mark on them. For me personally, at this point, I'll put it that way. To me, is I set up folders and files. So if I were to call me and say, Kelly, I need to discuss this issue with you, I flip on my tablet or the Remarkable, pull it up, a file for him, start a note page, just like I would if I was pulling out a yellow pad. And I have all these notes. He talked to me about this client and we had this issue and whatnot. And it saves automatically. Well, then if he calls me a month from now and says, Kelly, we talked last month about so-and-so, I'm like, I don't remember but I can pull it right up wherever I'm at and I have that information with me, because part of the trouble I run into is I'll have information on a yellow pad on my collection of yellow pads, and I don't have that information with me when somebody's asking me. And so it's organized by client. Again, it's kind of this paperless mode. Is it for somebody that's, I hate to say, is over 60, right? Is it hard to transition? It's a challenge, right? Because many of us on this call, even you started with 13 column green sheet, right? So it's a transition, but it helps me be more efficient and helps me remove some of those piles on the side of my desk.
And Remarkable is a little different because you actually write with a stylus, right?
Right, you write with a stylus. There's a couple out there that do similar. That's Remarkable to me, and the reviews I read, it writes more like a tablet. It feels like paper. So it's not like the old days where you're writing on your little BlackBerry or whatever, right? It just feels more like a piece of paper, and you can use. They have different, you can line paper, polka dot paper, whatever kind of paper you want displayed on it. You can scroll down so you can write 3 or 4 pages in a row, or you can scroll to a new page. There's a lot of different functionality to it, and I think it works pretty well. I'm fairly frugal. It's a little pricey. I think the base, I bought it straight from Remarkable. I think it's like $350, and then you have to buy a stylus. So I mean, it's a piece of technology that makes you more efficient. If it makes me more efficient over time, it pays for itself easily.
And you mentioned you can download things to it in order to be able to add notes to it. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then also about how you save it, and does it connect to like your main computer, or do you put stuff in the cloud? How does that work?
Yeah,
Kelly, can you ask the question?
it syncs to your computer. They do have a subscription that you get a free for a year that allows more functionality. I know you can download and read books off it, and you can download like PDF documents. I'll tell you, I have not graduated to that level yet. I'm still trying to build my structure as to how I organize. But there's a good amount of functionality, and even if you're, I'm not going to say I'm technically challenged. I will say this: the only thing I like about Apple is Apple stock. So I'm not an iPad user. I don't interface with all that, and that's probably some of my learning curve, because if you're an Apple user, you already have a lot of that interaction built into your product line. So yeah, it's another tool that takes you. It's probably just more of a paperless kind of discussion, right? But it takes you where you have to get rid of all these. I used to have 4 or 5 stacks of yellow pads just on the corner of my desk, because when somebody called me from a call 2 months ago, it's a different yellow pad and I needed it there to look at. So
Right. And Joanne, I'm going to get to you in just one second. So I don't want this to be a Remarkable commercial, but the reason why I'm spending a little time with it is because of the fact that one of the real advantages of Remarkable is easy in, easy out. It's hard to open up your computer, open up a file, take notes, and then save it somewhere and then remember where it is. But I've noticed that people using Remarkable, it just pops it open, do a note, and then figure it out. It'll kind of either self-sort depending upon how you put it in, or you can sort it out later. Joanne, you had your hand up. Please feel free to join us here.
Yes, not having seen your demonstration, Kelly, I don't like to have sticky notes. I don't like to be carrying, paper either. But I have on my iPhone, and I have what's called Google Keep. I also have Microsoft Notes. What makes, if you're familiar with those 2 applications, is this still much smoother than doing something in there on the fly and then getting it into, say, my document manager or whatever?
yeah, I can't speak to those other platforms. And I guess if there were a takeaway, I would say, what can you do to, and we've overused this lately, I think, what can you do to go paperless? And again, for me, I interface with, multitudes of people across the country, and I need these notes of, I helped you with this client. Now, I mean, I still have file folders for, tax returns and secure portals and all that. But to me, part of the answer of that tablet upon tablet, right? Because I'd have multiple tablets, and I thought, well, if I tear out the tablet and I put it in the folder of the client, does that help? How do I sort and navigate that? But I'll give you an example. I was in Orlando. I was interfacing. I got in a conversation with about a client that's a taxpayer advocate and congressman and a big mess. So I was interfacing with some senior IRS folks, and they were like, "Oh, that's not working. That's a problem. We need to fix that." And I'm like, "Yes, I've been telling them they need to fix it." But you run into those barriers. The person goes, "Well, can you give me the case name or the social or this?" I had my Remarkable in my briefcase. I pulled it up, opened up the page of the client, had my contact information for the taxpayer advocate office, the case numbers, all that information right there. I opened up the screen and she said, great. She took a picture of it with her phone and had all the information she needed. If I would have had my yellow pad, it would have been back at home, right, in my office. So that's the value to me. Does that work in all environments? No, but again, it's technology moving. It's the tool, right? It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't do my research for me. It doesn't give me tax answers, but it helps me pull all my information together and all these notes that and again, it's the way I operate. So if I have a piece of paper, I start writing notes on it. Well, now it's all consolidated into one spot. And if I need to sort it into a different folder later, I can do that.
So we've had a bunch of comments in the chat, and somebody asked if we all buy Remarkables, will Kelly give a class? I'm sure we can convince him to lead a discussion about how people use it. and maybe everybody can share their experiences because I've noticed a number of you have posted that you purchased a Remarkable also and are very excited about it. But I want to pivot because David asked a question that's been getting a lot of comments here. Do most accountants release their cell phone numbers to their clients? He tries not to release his cell phone number. I'm getting the sense, David, that you don't always succeed in not giving out your cell phone number. I'm going to start with you, Kelly, and I'm going to hit a bunch of you have talked about your Lewis, and a couple others have talked about it. So I'm going to, if you've mentioned it in the chat, I'm probably going to call on you, but I'm going to start with Kelly as I make my list of who to call on next. Do you give out your cell number?
I only have one phone number.
Okay.
My cell number is my work number and my personal number I carry. I don't want to carry multiple phones. And I manage that by if I get a call, if Chris Freeland were to call me, I'd have her number in my phone and I'd tag it. And then if it shows up, I know, oh, that's it. But I even answer, unless it says potential spam, I answer it because it may be somebody that Chris gave my number to somebody else, said, hey, call Kelly, can he help you out? So I'm an outlier there.
Mark Nelson Jr. You mentioned here you mentioned it to everybody. You use Ring. Is that Ring Central or is that a different system? And do you mind talking a little bit about that and how you like it?
We use Rings. It's Ring Central. So yeah, we love it. I mean, we text clients with it. I never use it on my phone because when I'm not at work, I don't want to be at work. So I mean, it has that option where you can kind of, it just plugged into your, cell phone. So when your cell phone, so when somebody calls the office or your office's direct line or whatever, your desk's direct line, it'll just ring to your cell phone if you want it to. You can text clients from that, your main office number, without them having your cell phone. But personally, we just use it for, in the office, and it's got a desktop app where we're texting clients, when their taxes are done, right? Instead of calling them, because 95% of them, when we ask them up front, hey, when they're done, do you want to call or do you want to text? They all want to text. Nobody listens to voicemail. Nobody wants to answer their phone. So they all want to text, and it takes us 5 seconds to send this, pre-written text to that number or whatever. And so it works for us. And so.
And Joanne, you use Google Voice. Tell us the difference about that and how you like it or don't like it.
Well, I've used Google Voice now for several years because I use Google Workplace. And it costs me dirt cheap per month. I think it's less than $10 a month. Well, it's not less than $10 a month, but it's great because when I converted from Cox phone line to that, I was able to keep my fax number. I was able to keep my regular phone number. And when they call me, they can either call me using my business number, and that will ring in and tell me that I've got a business call, and it merges to my phone, my iPhone, so I can answer it. It's also on my computer. I can make calls from my computer using Google Voice. And if they actually go to a text message and use that same number, I will get a text message. And I have several clients that like to work by text message because they do not check their emails very often. And so it has worked out perfectly. And if it's something I want to capture, it's pretty easy for me to capture and save that note or archive it or whatever, that message that is. So yeah, I've been very happy with it. My clients have been happy with it. And I check text messages far more than I would answer a phone call because I'm me, myself. I don't have anyone else. And my clients that use that feature know that if they want to get a quick response from me, even if it's, I'll have to call you tomorrow, or I'll have to call you later, they like it.
Nice. And Louis, you have a different approach to this. You actually have a completely separate cell phone that you give out to your clients. Tell us how you juggle that.
Okay, basically, I just monitor that number from 9 to 5 during the week. I don't keep the phone near me at night. I don't keep it on weekends. And, my clients over the years learned that, it's a good way to communicate. A lot of times it really depends on what my clients' preferences are. Some I know are more responsive to emails. Some are more responsive to texts. And the ones that I text, I use that phone for. But like I said before, I don't keep it on 24/7. I leave it in my car when I leave work, and I look at it when I get in the car the next morning.
Got it. Joanne, Maria asked if you have any challenges with voice quality because she used Google Voice in the past and had some challenges with voice over IP.
No, I haven't had any of those challenges. The only challenge I have had, and to be honest, it's not important, so I haven't checked to see how to handle it. And that is if I'm in my car and if my phone is hooked up to, my dashboard, sometimes when a business call comes in, and that's a call, not a text message problem, if I'll try to answer it and it won't connect. And so then I know I have to reach out to them afterwards. But since I'm driving, even though I'm hands-free, I really don't care.
Right. David, you talked about using File Cabinet CS for your client calls. Can you explain a little bit about that and how that helps to support your interaction? Kemi, do we have access to him? Does he have access to speak?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Hyman, you have, David, I'll come back to you. Hyman, you have 3 clients who have your cell phone number, and they pay well for that honor. How do you distinguish who gets to have your cell phone number or not? What's your bar for, is it legitimately a dollar amount? Is it they've been a client for so long? Is it, they're not going to call you on Christmas Day?
Yeah, it's not, there's no, specific dollar amount that I would set on it, as far as that goes. But I mean, just to give you a rough idea, all right, one of the ones that I have, right, has me on a retainer of $3,500 a month. All right. That gives them pretty much the right to call me almost anytime that they want. I'm their CPA on retainer for the multiple businesses that they have. All right. The other 2 that have my phone number are 2 local tax attorneys that I do a lot of work for, that I get a lot of referrals from. All right. And, that business, just from those 2 attorneys, each year probably makes me, $50,000 to $75,000, just from those 2 attorneys. So I feel that they deserve the honor, for lack of a better way of saying that. They need to be able to get a hold of me anytime, because they're both criminal tax attorneys. It could be a situation literally where CI showed up at the client's door, and he needs to get me on board and needs to get me engaged right away so that I'm covered under Covell.
Great. Christine, yes, you are up and you have a lot to say and a lot of topics. So I'm gonna use you to pivot from this to the credit card processing. So please feel free to start with the phone stuff.
So yeah, first with the phone, I just wanted to say when we were in Orlando at Aspire, I met the gentleman who started Textalent, and it is a texting system where you get a separate number, but it also can be automated to do a bunch of other things. And I believe he's at the forums, and I'm going to check that out in more detail. But currently I use a texting company called Simple Texting or Simple Text, and it just converts my personal well, not my personal phone number, but my business phone line over to texting, and it comes into me on my computer, not on a separate phone, although my phone, because it's all linked. But they can text, they can send pictures, they can do anything on that. But I only have to give them one number. It's my business number. They can use it to phone, or they can use it to text. They don't have to figure out a different number. So I recommend doing that just because it's easier, and I pay less than you can pay by how much you use it. So if you use it a lot, you're going to use it more. You're going to pay more, but it does come in super handy because, as somebody said, everybody wants to text these days and nobody checks their email. So, and I guess I'm switching to credit cards. I do take credit cards. I've taken them for years. I'm in the Kelly camp. When I go someplace, I expect that Lowe's and Kroger and, the restaurants, everybody's going to take credit cards. And I'll be honest, I tend to avoid the ones that surcharge me if I can. I believe it's part of the cost of doing business. It's 2024. Nobody carries a checkbook anymore. Very few people provide cash, although I will tell you, a client paid me some cash this morning, which shocked me. But I just think it's just like Kelly, I just find it's just so much easier. I use CPA charge. I can invoice right out of it. If I've put an invoice in with a tax return and hasn't been paid, I just send it through CPA charge. They get a link right back to the processing. And it's just, like I said, I just believe it's part of the world today. It's, as I told a group I was speaking with last week, it's 2024, and we need to operate like we're living in 2024.
Absolutely. Evan, you were mentioning that some states actually prohibit credit card surcharging. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, there's certainly, so previously there used to be sort of a general prohibition from all the big merchant account providers. And then that was more or less on, that was more or less on the individuals. If you were doing credit card surcharging, you could be more or less canceled for, because that was supposed to be something you're supposed to offer as part of accepting credit cards. There's a court decision that struck that down, and then what a bunch of states, not all of them, there's plenty of states that don't, some states will prohibit you from surcharging at all. So you can't add a 3% surcharge. So, if your bill is, say, $100, they can't say up, it's 105, with credit cards. You can do the reverse of saying, well, it's 95 if you pay by cash, but you can't then you can't do the opposite of surcharge.
Got it. So I won't call on the folks, but if you notice in the chat, a lot of people are agreeing on the frustration with surcharges. We all experience that in real life. But there was, I believe, Pamela, you were talking about. Lewis called it Drake Pay, and Lewis, please explain what that is.
You just
Okay, come on. They used to call it something else prior to this year, but it's integrated right into their tax software, where I click a button and it sends a payment request to my client, and they pay it, online, and I get the money within a couple of days. It's worked out really well with integrating within my tax software, with having a portal, for signatures, and the payment part was, welcome addition. Thank you.
Nice. Kemi, Maria sent a link about an article on the surcharges to the hosts and panelists. Would you mind moving that into, or copying it over and posting it into everyone? Thank you. And then I want to switch over. David just asked another interesting question. David, you're my question guy today, and I appreciate you very, very much. How do you schedule your client tax appointments? I'm going to read the question out. It's in the chat, but I'm going to read it out anyway because it's a good question. many of my clients schedule their tax appointments for the following year when they leave their current year tax appointment. You use Outlook with an Exchange server. Many are in the cloud. Kelly, I'm going to start with you. How do you schedule your appointments? And how far out do you do it?
I mean, my tax base is small, so from that perspective, they schedule as the incoming year comes in. But my others calendar, I push people to a calendar. I said, send me an invite. You want a Zoom call, a Google Meets, a Teams? I even tell my wife and daughter. My daughter's an adult with 3 grandkids. I tell them I live and die by the calendar. I said, if we're going to go somewhere as a family and do so, I don't care if we're going to lunch, put it on my calendar, because but that helps me manage my time, and I'll schedule out. We'll put it there. I have tax seminars that I'm teaching this fall scheduled out all the way into December, because as soon as I know the dates of when I'm teaching and where I'm going, I put it on the calendar to avoid conflicts.
I am going to jump over to Lorinda. Lorinda does not take appointments. Please explain that. Kemi, let's see if we can help Lorinda out and let her get in there. Joanne, you don't have any in-person clients other than maybe 5. Would love to hear how you manage that. How do you manage to not take tax client appointments?
Well,
Or do you- Go ahead.
well, first of all, many of my clients stayed with me when I moved to Arizona. And so there was going to be no personal, in-person appointments. And we had to work through email and portals, preferably not mail. I only have, I think, one out-of-state client that actually mails me their stuff, and they're in their 80s. Other than that, even when I bought part of a practice here, I have business clients who were just too busy. They knew who recommended me, and they could have cared less even when I offered to go and meet them. So I had one client for over 8 years and never met him till he retired, and he retired. As I screen new incoming people, I pretty much tell them that my method is working with a portal where they can upload their documents, where I will upload their PDF. And if there is an elderly person, I'll tell you what though, most of my people who are over 65 but under 85 are computer literate, because so many of them are dealing with financial planners that use, internet and technology. Others have their own businesses, which as Chris pointed out, all businesses today use technology. So it hasn't been hard. Only when and I've even had complicated cases where then we resort to phone calls. But for the most part, I have one client that comes to me because she had 3 companies, and there was a lot of intensity, and she used QuickBooks on desktop and I don't. So, she would come in person, but it works out well. And the few who do come each year are generally the new clients that I have taken on, and they meet me once and then they're ready to go online.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. Lorinda, I think we're ready for you, and I think we figured out how to help you to be able to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay, so during COVID, we stopped taking appointments. I was doing appointments pretty much only before that. And of course, during COVID, we couldn't do that. But we started exploring our options for uploading documents to the secure portal and just having just working through the documents and the tax returns as they came in. And I learned several things during that time. some of which are, if they're at home and I need a document, they can get it. If they're in my office during an appointment, they can't get that document and they are sitting in a pile waiting for them later. If I'm on a call or a Zoom and working on someone, I felt like I was a lot more efficient because of that. Then the other option is, the other thing about it I liked is I would work up the project, the tax return, when the client's not sitting in front of me, which doesn't scare me. I've been doing this for 35 years, but I would work up the tax return, have it nearly completed, and then I could call them. And in a shorter period of time than they would have been in my office, we can go through the tax return, we can gather the documents they might have at home and finish with the few little things that are needed. And so we have a thorough visit over the phone regarding their tax return, just as if we were in the office. But now I have control of what I can do. If I'm working and I went to work at 5 a.m. or whatever it was that day, and I'm exhausted at 3 and just need a break, I wouldn't have known that 3-4 weeks ago when my schedule was filled out. But now I can take a break, close my eyes, get something to eat, walk out the office, something to regenerate, and then get back to it. And also, if I'm working on tax returns and I'm not talking to clients and someone calls me with their document information, now I can take that call and finish theirs and interrupt what I was doing because I wasn't with the client in front of me. So COVID put me back to where I was maybe 30 some years ago when I didn't take appointments. And took me away from the appointments that I had been doing. So now we are getting younger and younger clients because they absolutely love uploading their documents from home. They love doing Zoom. They love having a quick conversation while they're at home when it's convenient for both of us. And I have been able to do a lot more tax returns and just very efficiently.
Thank you very much. Hyman, you have a few clients that insist on coming in, but some don't. How do you kind of guide that process? And what, again, what's your cutoff? What's your choice decision-making line?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a specific decision-making line. I mean, the bottom line is my office manager, Renee, for any existing client, she basically is going to try to talk them out of coming in for an appointment. Yeah, unless it's somebody that I've told her that I specifically need to see for some reason. I've got a couple of clients who absolutely insist on sitting down with me every year. And one of them is literally the 98-year-old little old lady who wants to hand me every receipt that this is my doctor and this is my, but she pays for it. That's it. We try to talk her out of it, every single year. You don't need to come in. It's going to take, an hour of time. I could do it, in half of that if you're not here. If you want to pay for the hour, as I joke, I'm a good Jew. I'll take money from anybody. If you want to pay me to come in, even though it's not necessary to come in, that's fine. One thing we do though is any new clients who wanted to, an in-person appointment, we don't try to talk them out of that. I understand it's a new client, it's a new relationship, and you obviously, not obviously, but most people do want to sit down, and talk to the person and see them face to face because it's a very personal relationship. You're telling your CPA stuff that you wouldn't tell your mother, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your kids or anything. And you want to know that this is a person that you can really, react with, interrelate with, and just have a personal connection with. And for those cases where we can't do that, that's why we have Zoom.
I mean, I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how you maintain that sense of relationship over Zoom? Because I think a lot of people struggle with how to make that connection, that personal connection.
Well, I just think the idea that you're looking at the person, all right. I mean, I think that accomplishes it. All right. That's there's that old thing, the old timers, you'll remember, long distance, it's the next best thing to being there. Well, no, it's not, but if you can see the person, You can see where they're sitting, what they're wearing, how they're dressed, what they look like. I mean, I don't want to make any decisions on the basis of what somebody looks like, but again, it's that kind of a thing. You want to see the person that you're talking to. Because I've had the same experience that some of the other people have had, where I've had clients that I've been doing work for 15, 20 years, and I've never met them. And then they come walking in the door, and the first reaction is, that's not what I expected you to look like. And there's just a comfort level in knowing what that person looks like.
Absolutely.
I had a Zoom meeting this morning with a client out in California that I've been doing work for probably 15 years. He was one of 8 people on a Zoom meeting, and I had never seen this guy before. And I've been doing work for him and his family for 15 years, and I finally got to see him. And my first comment was, "Yeah, now I finally get to put a face to the name."
Nice.
I really think there's something to that.
Nice. Judith, you mentioned after COVID, you really found you saved a lot of time working all day, not cleaning up between visits. Was COVID really the transition point for you in being more remote access to clients, or had you already started down that path?
No, COVID was my transition.
And how did it work out? I mean, obviously you saved time. Do you feel like the relationship is still there?
Oh, we get a lot of complaints about I miss talking to Judy. And what I realized was a lot of those conversations, I enjoyed them too, but I don't have time as a sole proprietor with 500 and some odd clients. I don't have time to sit and catch up on everything that's happened during tax season during my tax appointment. So I've told them all that I'm more than happy to talk to them after April 15th. They can come in and we can sit down and go over whatever they want to go over. But during tax season, I just have to stay focused on the tax returns that are here and working on them. And a lot of the clients understand that. They also understand that if they aren't here by the second week or so in March, they're likely going on extension, and we can finish up after April 15th. I've got a lot of clients on extension.
Got it. Got it. Diana, you mentioned that you got a lot of backlash when you tried to change over. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Trying to make sure she's still on. Diana, I'll come back to you. Maybe Kemi will double check and make sure we haven't accidentally muted you. I'm sorry about that. Pamela, you said you use the Verifile portal to help reduce appointments. How does that work for you?
Working really, really well. It took me a while to get the hang of it. The first couple of times I listened to the tutorial, it was so far over they expected me to know more than I did. The third time I watched it, whoever it was, she explained it like Dick and Jane. I had no trouble at all. I logged in, I don't know how to delete things yet still, but yeah, it's worked out great. And people, a lot of my clients now, my older clients know they want to drop it off or mail it to me, or because I won't let them email it to me. Just regular. But the portal's working out great, and it saves me a ton of paper because I can drop their tax returns in there and they can print them themselves if they want. So it saved me on office supplies as well. Yeah, it's worked out real well.
Nice.
I'm real happy with it.
Nice. Kathleen, you went way before COVID. You had major surgery in 2004. I'm sorry about that. I hope it all came out well. But more importantly to this discussion, you switched over, asked them to drop off instead of meeting with you, and it stuck. How did you get it to stick?
I think a lot of people didn't realize that they didn't have to come in and see me. I do have a few who have come back around, and they're usually my more complex clients. We might do some tax strategy planning during our meeting. But other than that, once everybody kind of got it forced on them, they were not a problem to keep there. They just stuck with it and said, yeah, this is easier for me. I don't have to worry about your schedule or anything else. And any new clients, quite often I meet with them the first year and then I tell them after this, unless you get something really difficult coming in, you'll be drop off. And they're just, I use portals too. I use SafeSend for both uploaded documents and delivery of tax returns. It just works great.
Nice. And Chris, you invite them to come during the summer in the off season?
Yeah, I mean, so if somebody, first of all, I have clients, I do take a few appointments. They can book online, and usually the ones that come are the ones I don't need to see instead of the ones that really should have come because they had something new. But you know, old habits die hard. But I tell them, if you want to just come in and see me and chat, then that's a summer. You know, that's a summer project. The same thing. I don't allow anybody to come in during tax season and talk about retirement or taking their Social Security or any of those kind of things. They have to book an after tax season appointment to get that. But I don't know if everybody knows that if you use Office 365, there is a bookings tool in that's included. There's no additional charge for that. And you can set it up and mark when you want to take appointments, when you don't. You can stop people. You can say they have to book 48 hours out. You know, I don't like to come in the morning and find out somebody that I was on the schedule today that I didn't know about yesterday. So I don't allow them to do immediate bookings, but it is really nice because you can control, and instead of getting on the phone, whether it's you or an office person going back and forth of, well, do you have Wednesday at 2? No. Well, how about Thursday at 5? You know, and back and forth, you can just say, here's the link, pick a time, and I get notified, they get notified, and booking sends them an email 24 hours out, reminding them about their appointment. And sometimes people forget and they'll call and change it. Works really well. So
nice. We've got in the chat, there are a number of different applications that people are using to help set appointments, even if those aren't in person, whether they're Zoom or phone calls or whatever. I see Calendly is in there. I see Google Calendar is in there. Bill Schroeder had one, and I'm sorry, I don't see Web Links is the one. You know, there's enough different scheduling type pieces out there. I will ask one of our team members to go and put together a list of the popular ones, especially the ones that are available for free, like Calendly, and we'll put an article together and get it into the newsletter for you all, and do a little review of those so that you can all have some links and a list of ones to go take a look at. But it sounds like people are using different ones out there, and that they're having different levels of success. I do want to switch over and talk about Hyman. You talked about you only take PDFs in there instead of pictures. Is that a problem for people, or do people get a lot of images instead of PDF versions? I see Chris nodding her head. I'm going to start with Hyman. I'll hop to Chris. And if any of you are finding that issue and want to talk about how you deal with it, I'd love to have you speak about that. Hyman, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's a huge issue for us. I mean, the bottom line is we get a picture. Sometimes it's attached to an email. Sometimes it's embedded in the email. Sometimes it's a combination of both. You have to download the picture. You have to resize it. Hopefully, they got a picture of the whole thing, and then it's clear, right? And it takes, and then we have to take that document, be able to print it and then save it into our, document management system. Where now we have JPEGs and JPGs and BMPs and all this other stuff. My document management system is basically set up to work around PDFs. So we just composed a very generic email that basically, if we get a picture, I just hit reply, I copy and paste this reply into the email, and it says, please be advised that we do not accept pictures in any format, whether they're attached to an email, embedded in an email, attached and embedded, or in any other format. We only accept PDF files. You have a smartphone. Your smartphone has an app that is a PDF scanner. You have to send us a PDF. We won't even look at it otherwise. And that's how we handle it. And so far, it's worked very nicely.
Got it. And Chris?
So hi, if you'd share your email with us, all of us would really appreciate that, I'm sure. Yeah, I have the same problem, and I use Verifile also, and I have lots of people that do that. Then the nice thing is if you do still use, because there are things I do print out with Verifile, you can go in, and if somebody's uploaded you 6 or 8 different documents, if they're in PDF, you can bring them all into one and print all at once without going in and did I get all 6 or 8 of those? But you can't do that with any other images. It's only PDFs. So when the client sends you a couple of PDFs and a couple of JPEGs, then you're like, okay, if you're trying to keep track, especially if, because of how the order I do things in, and I don't store in Verifile, I print and then work from the paper, and then we scan to our actual file system. But it's just a pain. The same thing with my simple text, they'll take a picture of their 8879, and like I said, I won't get the whole thing. I'll either get the top or the bottom. And it's really, really a pain, but I'm going to do that exact same thing. I already have an email that says if you sent an attachment, I'm not opening it. You shouldn't be opening any attachments from an email anyhow, but I'm going to get the one, and I'm going to set one up for PDFs too, because it is just a royal pain.
I just posted in the chat the email that I sent out to all my clients.
Thank you.
Is it okay if we capture that and put that into the newsletter?
I believe the fee is $500, but yeah.
Okay. I'll add it to my bill.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, but I don't take credit cards. No, I'm just.
Maria, you use workflow and document management software called Docket that converts it. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
Well, that's Docket is a workflow and document management system depending on which product you buy. And so I'm trying to manage my workflow there instead of Excel. But one of the things that I really like about it is that it will split PDFs or convert them, or and it scans them and makes them readable, although I don't know if it's able to do that from a picture. So that's one of the reasons that we like PDF. And then it also has a really nice preview feature. So when instead of opening a file to look at it to see if it's the right one, if the name doesn't make sense, it lets me preview the files from within the folders before I have to open them.
Thank you. Lori, you use Adobe and just convert them over? Would you mind talking about that?
Yes, I'm just a one-person office because I noticed somebody said that Adobe gets expensive for multiple users. But I just pay a monthly fee. I think it did go up to like $20 a month, but I can bring in all of the files. Like if they upload it to my portal, I can bring in all the files, right click and tell it to combine it into a PDF. And so it combines everything to PDF. So it's not too bad. I mean, it is a little bit of extra work, but I don't print anything and then scan it. It all just stays digital.
Right. Thank you. And Lorinda, you had a great comment about never clicking on additional email attachments. Why would that be? What could possibly go wrong?
Right. Unfortunately, we do have to be concerned about the things that could come through on a bad attachment. And I just tell our clients that to protect your data, we don't accept any email attachments. Please use our portal. Here's a portal link. And I just don't want to take a chance, it's just too scary right now.
Gotcha. Kelly, do you have that issue? Since you're my SME, I'm going to come back to you, and then I'm going to switch over to the topic about how people price and talk a little bit about that. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry.
That's
the
okay.
issue for which, please?
Pictures versus PDFs versus other random file types.
I get some pictures you know, some things just easier for people just to send. I have more trouble with people sending stuff on an unsecure format instead of through the like Verifiable portal. You know, like I have CPAs send me tax returns on an email with no protection. Drives me crazy. Besides, it's a violation of Circular 230 and a few other things. But I'm with, you know, who's, well, I saw Lorinda who was saying, you know, it's like, I'm not going to print and scan and, you know, print and mark up and rescan. I've gotten to where even a lot of my documents, if they come up in a PDF, especially, I take them and I have a touch screen on my laptop, and I mark it up with the you know, whatever that electronic pin is, right? That's just, I mark the file and where I've done things with it and make notes and resave it, and it saves with all the notations on it. I'm far from paperless, but I don't want any more paper.
Gotcha. And so I want to close out as we come up to the top of the hour here. We've got 5 minutes left, and I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing, but I want to put some very distinct parameters around this. I do not want to talk about prices. If people start talking about prices, we're just going to end the call, because that will get us all into some antitrust trouble. So we're going to just not have that happen. But I do want to talk about how people price. And the question came up, do you price by hourly? Do you price by form? Do you price by type of project that you're working on? I'm going to start with Kelly. He's a little different, as he mentioned early on. I'm going to move on to some of the rest of you. But before I do that, I want to plug the income and fees survey. We are launching the new income and fees survey. It's just a rehash of, it's the same one that we've been doing. We've moved it from every other year to every year now. It'll be coming out in the middle of August. So within the next 2 weeks, you'll see that the initial piece coming out. We will have it close at the end of September. We will process the report and have it out to you by October this year. We had to redo a bunch of the questions because we took it internally instead of outsourcing it to a data firm that was not doing some of the things that our members wanted. And also we needed to change it up so that it was a little more evergreen, because we had a lot of very specific topics that were honestly 10 years old, and we're asking information that was no longer relevant to the way we do our business now. But in there, there is a breakdown on the different ways in which each of the respondents actually bill out, whether they bill out hourly, per form, on a monthly basis. I know many of you are moving to a recurring monthly fee instead of a hourly or per form piece. And that came up a lot at the Aspire discussions at the summit. So if any of you do that now, I would love to make sure that you have a chance to talk about it. Kelly, how do you determine how you charge?
Yeah, twofold. One, I used to purely base on just time, and I'm becoming a convert of some other approaches. If I'm dealing with firms, you know, another CPA firm, and I'm on retainer with some, I do by the hour. And if they want to value bill me up, they're welcome to do that. However they want to do that, as long as I get paid. And the other is for the clients, is doing more of a value bill. I mean, if you help somebody out of a tax controversy, or whether it's even a tax return, what's the value that you're giving them versus, you know, what it's taken? Because that helps build in. If I'm taking 3 phone calls throughout the year, and now I do their tax return, or I sit down and do a tax planning meeting, the tax return may take me half the time in an hourly sense than what I bill them, but they're getting their value throughout the year, right? And we often think about selling our time as opposed to selling our value. And that would be a challenge we could talk about for a long time, but I want to leave some bandwidth for other people.
Great. Hyman's got his hand up like an excellent participant. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Hyman.
I'll say, just expanding on what Kelly said, basically, I've had, you know, over the years, clients will always, you know, we charge an hourly rate, and I know I can't tell you what that is, you know, but clients are going to say, well, yeah, hi, how long do you think it's going to take me? And I look at them and I say, it doesn't matter. They say, what do you mean it doesn't matter? I said, it has nothing to do with how long it's going to take me. How long is it going to take you to do it?
Got it.
It's going to take you 10 hours. to do it? Is it worth, I'm making up a number now, totally random, if it's gonna take, you 10 hours to do it, is that worth $500 to you? Yes or no?
Right.
If it is, then you can pay me. If not, too bad.
Hyman, do you add on additional? I'm gonna jump to Lorinda is asking a question that is relevant here. Do you add on fees for additional services, whether it's calling the IRS or doing an additional form or covering a notice or something of that nature?
And that was one of the reasons that I do charge for that stuff. And one of the reasons I stopped doing monthly fees with the vast majority of my clients. I've got like 3 or 4 that I'm still doing monthly on, the ones that are on retainer basically. Right. But one of the reasons I stopped doing that was because I got into too many disagreements, and I'll use that term loosely, with clients. Well, hi, I'm paying you a monthly fee. That should be included in the fee. Well, no, it's not included in the fee because it's not my fault that the IRS messed up the processing of your return. Well, I shouldn't have to pay you for that, blah, 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 blah. And I just, over the years, I lost too many clients over an argument, over that conversation. All right. So it's a separate engagement, preparing the tax return, that my engagement, and I'm actually in a discussion right now with, there's some attorneys involved with a client of mine because we submitted the return to the IRS and they've had it for over a year and still haven't processed it. And the client's attitude is, well, hi, your engagement's not done. My engagement letter specifically says the engagement is terminated when I hand you the tax return to send it to the IRS or when I have an e-file confirmation. My engagement is now over. If you want me to provide any additional services after that, you got to pay for it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Maria, you went through a process. I'd love to have you talk about what you put into the chat. How did you make the determination on who gets to be which?
I'm not sure what you mean, who gets to be which, but
You said 2/3 of them, you basically went through and set a minimum price and you based it on what you were, how much effort you were putting into, it looks like about 2/3 of them. If you could explain what you did, I'm not sure I'm interpreting it correctly.
okay. So I went back and looked, I wanted to simplify my billing. So I went back and looked at, I think it was the time where everybody was saying that you should raise your prices at least X% right after the pandemic. So I went back and looked at historical billing for, I think I looked at the prior 3 years or something like that. And then I figured out what the kind of the sweet spot was, that 2/3 of my clients were paying at least this much or close to that much. And I looked at it on the business category and on the individual category, and then created a billing policy and sent it out saying your minimum is going to be X. I also charge 50% of that amount as a retainer for down payment, and then I collect the remainder. So if I have exceptions to that, I try to make my exception be the retainer amount. So I don't have to do an additional bill. It's worked for the most part. It kind of shoots me in the foot if their billing should be $50 or $100 more, because it feels like nitpicking if I send out an additional invoice for a tiny amount. But if I have 50 of them that are $50, that adds up.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Kathleen, we're gonna finish with you because I loved your comment here about your clients paying for what's in your brain. One of the things that we discussed a lot at the summit at Aspire was the fact that many of our members, they position themselves as though they're just a commodity product. I just do tax returns, or I just do bookkeeping, or I just do payroll, or I just do the same as everybody else. And you're not the same as everybody else. Each one of you is magnificent in your own individual way. And what you bring to the table is you. And that is fantastic. And I'd love for you, Kathleen, to take a moment and just talk about how you frame that when you're having that discussion and setting your pricing.
Honestly, I don't have to. My client base has been built since the 90s. They know what I bring to the table, and they tell all their referrals, and a lot of referrals I don't take because they're not what I want at this stage. But I've never had to try to impart that value. I make sure that they know when we have our discussions, here's what I did for you, here's what we're looking at, here's what we saved. So I don't really have to go to extra extremes to impart that value. My website helps a lot. I get a lot of phone calls and people say, oh, that's just what I was looking for.
Nice. Kathleen, thank you very much. Thank you, Hyman. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Maria. Thank you all, those of you who talked. Mark, Lorinda, Lori, Pam. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Louis, David, Joanne. But I really appreciate how we can make this discussion. This has been incredibly valuable. And we have recorded the session. We'll process it and put it up on the website as a resource. And we just want to say thank you very much. We'll see you next month.